Next up, let's talk about Notre Dame. Last year, 14-2. Obviously, no conference. They returned 16 starters. Um, they also have 12 who started last year during their playoff run because of injuries. So they have basically 28 players who started at some point multiple games for them last year. And they have 4 starters who they brought in via the transfer portal. So they are pretty loaded as far as experience, at least somewhat. And then a lot of the young guys last year, they were a very young team that made it to the national championship game last year. So they have a young team with that gained a lot of experience in 16 games last year. They are replacing their quarterback, so Riley Leonard to the draft. C.J. Carr, I think, is going to win the job over Kenny Mitchie. He looked really good in the spring game, looked good in practice. He just has all the tools to make all the throws that you want him to make, and so I feel like he'll win this here. You have Jeremiah Love, one of the Heisman favorites at running back. I think they picked up. I think one of the biggest pickups that they had. I think I don't even have it listed here from a transfer perspective is Malachi Fields, who is projected to be one of the top wide receivers drafted next year. And he's coming in as a transfer to be wide receiver 1 for him. And they have Jaden Grayhouse, who ended the season very well. So this team, I think, is loaded. They have a tough schedule to start, obviously a little bit with Miami and then Texas A&M and Arkansas in 3 out of the first 4 games. They have Boise State. I don't think Boise's going to be as good as they were last year. They have USC, and they're going to want that game pretty bad there on the 18th of October. And then they have Boston College, Navy, Pitt, and Syracuse and Stanford. So I feel like if they get through that first couple weeks, they have a chance to do some good things. So I'll start with you, Jess. What do you feel about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
I think if the quarterback can kind of even do most of what Leonard did last year, I think they could go undefeated. I love how many returning players they have. I love that, they've got solid starter. It's Notre Dame. They're always going to have good offensive linemen. I like, because the college game, maybe not quite as much as what we're seeing in college basketball, but there is a difference between a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old. Those few extra years of being in a program, working on your body, growing, kind of coming into your own. There is a significant difference. It is very rare that Jeremiah Smith just comes out and looks like a man amongst boys at 18, 19 years old. What Ryan Williams did is an outlier, not the norm. And a team that has so many returning starters, so much familiarity with itself, that they can, almost essentially starter-wise pick up where they left off, healthier than they were at the end of last season. And, I'm not big on, Boise State is ranked 24th. Notre Dame should beat that. They should be able to beat Pitt, Syracuse, Navy, NC State. I like USC. I don't see USC being able to beat Notre Dame this year. So if they can get past those first 2 games, at Miami and home for A&M, I think they go undefeated. And as of right now, I think I'm picking them to beat Miami, picking them to beat A&M. I think Notre Dame could go undefeated this year.
Jordan, what do you think?
No, just all the Jess's points. So many returning. Thanks, Jess. That's all I gotta say. No.
All right.
Yeah, good talk. No, I think the biggest difference this year for Notre Dame is that C.J. Carr. I think the one thing that kind of brought down Notre Dame's offense a little bit last year was just the passing efficiency of Riley Leonard. And I think C.J. Carr can do all that and pass the ball a little better and be able to just open that offense up more. I think if teams started to key in on Riley Leonard Last year it would have been a lot of different. NIU did it. They knew what was up. They figured it out, and I think CJ Carr can definitely spread the field, open the game up for Notre Dame's offense, especially with Jeremiah Love returning. Huge, just a lot of, great returners, starting returners. But their schedule, I think, honestly, isn't as difficult as like you would think. At Miami, yeah, but what? Miami, it's the same team as last year. They got Carson Beck, but I honestly have never really been big on Carson Beck. Already beat him once, so beat him again. And that Texas A&M game, I think we just have a better all-around team offensively and defensively, especially with all the young players from last year. Now they're back again, already a season on their belt, pushed through the playoffs, went to the college football championship, and did all that. I think these players are grown so much from even just the NIU game last year. Notre Dame took a huge step up, and I think they're just going to continue taking that step up. And I think they're going to go easily undefeated this year, which their schedule is kind of easy-ish compared to, a lot of teams. But those first two games, like Jess said, are going to be the tough ones, and we're going to see how they are really, especially going to Miami. That's going to be tough just because of the Miami-Notre Dame rivalry from back in the day. So I can see. I think in my head, I think they're going to go undefeated. I think it's going to depend. We're going to see how it's really going to turn out when, if they go into Miami and smack them in the mouth right away and put up 40 points and blow them out. Then the Texas A&M game is just going to be a cakewalk, and then the rest of the schedule is going to be easy. But it really is going to go down to that Miami game and how they, CJ Carr's first real game is, and all these young players actually, having that first full season under their belt and coming out and seeing what they do in a primetime Sunday game at 7:30. So I think it's all going to come down to that. But I think they're going to go undefeated, just how many returners they have and how good these returners that are coming back have been.
No, you're not going to disagreement for me. I do feel there's a couple tricky games here or there. They lost to Northern Illinois last year. They could lose to anybody, obviously, but if he has them motivated all year long, I think they'll do fine. The tricky game I'm thinking is that Syracuse game, November 22nd. Stephen Jelly projected to be the starting quarterback for Syracuse. It's the final game of the Notre Dame Stadium. Those games are always tricky because it's senior day. So that's a little tricky one at the end of the season. But, yeah, I agree. If they get past those first couple games, they should go undefeated. All right, let's move on to Michigan.